Hello everyone, hello YouTube, this is Felipe, o gato de salto. Today here again as Professor de Salto to give you an amazing video about a brief history of Samba part 3, Samba and Fascism. Okay, what can I do? You guys love polemic videos. I quite love polemic videos and topics as well. So let's have another polemic videos. Felipe, are you crazy trying to establish parallels between Samba, Nazism, fascism? What bug bit you? Well, the bug of history, people. So before we even get into that, make sure you leave a like to this video at the end if you like it. Subscribe to the channel to know that another video is on your way out to you, and especially because of this video and the content of this video, send a link to this video to all of your Samba friends. Doesn't matter if you are a musician or a dancer, so everyone is aware of this hot topic that I'm about to drop for you. Let's start. So, a brief history of Samba part 3, Samba and Fascism. I've made the brief history of Samba part 1, in which I explain exactly how Samba comes from Africa to Brazil and sort of, grows there. In a brief history of Samba part 2, I explain the different stages of Samba, when first it was forbidden and then it became popular, but rather for the elite, and then we started seeing the nationalistic sort of enhancement of the origins of Samba and the drums and the creation of Samba de Estácio. Today, I want to go a step further and explain to you how Samba actually became a national symbol for Brazil, internationally speaking and nationally speaking as well. But before, we must understand that Carnival is a religious party, celebration, whatever you want to call, from the Catholic Church that has been celebrated all over the world, also in Brazil. And in Rome, it has been celebrated since Roman times. In Roman times, Carnival was actually a party where all roles were inverted. So servants could be bosses for one day, and men could be women, and women could be men. So all roles were inverted in this party called, or celebrations called, Carnival. So Carnival was also celebrated in Brazil because Brazil, as a colony of Portugal, is also a very Catholic country, and we celebrated Carnival in different ways. The street carnival that was celebrated by the public, especially the poorer people in the 1910s, 1900s, 1920s, it was more like blockos, but not really formed blockos. It was just a big party in the street. There was a holiday, so people could go out, dress up. It was a lot of fun, but it had nothing to do with the carnival formats of the parades that we know today. As I said in the other videos I made, first, when Samba was born, and since it was sort of an agglomeration of black people and people of color practicing some sort of Afro-diasporic dance or music, it was forbidden by law. Then, in the early 1920s, especially after a Semana de Arte de 22, so the Modern Art Week of 1922, there was a shift in the way the Brazilian elite started perceiving art. What you have to understand is that if we take a step back, before Brazil became a republic, so before 1889, all different immigrants and types of people were united under the crown. But after the monarchy was abolished and the republic was created, it was a new sort of way of governing a country, and you had different people and folks from different countries and ethnies sort of living independently. It was not very clear, there was no national identity. And what happened in 1922 with the Modern Art Week is that artists from the elite decided to break the influence that Europe had on Brazil and on the art forms of Brazil. The idea was to create a new Brazilian art culture. I would like to quote something that the historian Guiomar de Gramont wrote in one of her books, Aleijadinho e o Aeroplano, which sort of depicts the image of those artists, the young artists of the time from 1922, which were the first modernists in Brazil. Generally speaking, the modernists were young people from the elite that sort of had a little bit of contact to the European culture and were confronted with the old world and started asking themselves about their own identity. They invented a homeland, patriotism, something that they could be proud of and belong to. However, this invention has many traits of exotic and primitive elements, as the Europeans at the time saw it. So basically what's saying is that artists of the time were tired of the ways that Europe influences Brazil within art, and they really wanted to create something authentic. Together with that, we must remember what happened in history globally, generally speaking. We had the rise of the nationalistic movement during the First World War, and then from the 1930s to the 1945, we had the Second World War with Hitler in Germany and his allies, for example, Mussolini in Italy, Franco in Spain, and drumroll, Vargas, Getúlio Vargas in Brazil, our first military dictator. What? You didn't know that we had a military dictator in Brazil? Yes, we did have it. Getúlio Vargas made a coup d'etat and got the power into power in 1930. Now, when that happened, he sent his Ministry of Foreign Affairs all the way to Germany to see how Hitler was actually dealing with his things, was creating this nationalistic sort of lifestyle for the country. When that person came back, he told Getúlio Vargas, our president, everything about how Hitler relied on propaganda. And that's when Getúlio Vargas had the wonderful idea of actively creating the Brazilian national symbols that we know today. He started looking around, sort of searching for elements of art and culture that were originated in Brazil in order to elevate those into the standards of, national quality for art and culture, and actually make them into national symbols that would be able to be sold and told about all over the world. It didn't take long until Getúlio Vargas, our dictator, stumbled onto Samba and thought, wow, this is something I can use to create a patriotic, nationalistic movement and cultural movement. Let's make Samba the symbol of Brazil. Of course, he didn't say it like this, but this is pretty much what happened, people. Carnival was already being celebrated. There were already being parades back in the 1920s, but it was only in 1937 that those parades were regulated. Getúlio Vargas actually made laws to ensure that the parades were very much like military parades. Yes, you heard it correctly. Military parades. Felipe, how can you connect military parades to the Brazilian carnival parades? Are you crazy? Let's have a look into it, people. The first parades took place in the Avenida do Rio Branco, which is where the military parades at the time used to happen. Then all parades had to perform or parade in front of important members of the government. Then all components of the samba schools and blocos who were paraded were judged in very specific and strict things. For example, they had a specific time to parade from A to B. They had to be aligned, marching down the street, and they were also judged on their uniforms or costumes. If you get those elements that I'm telling you, add some naked celebrities and some feathers, that's the carnival parades how they are today. But it goes further than that, people. You know, the samba schools and the blocos of the time, they were excited and they were actually happy that this was happening, that, you know, samba was being elevated in a nationalistic, dangerous, sort of fascist way onto being the national symbol of the country. So the schools were actually happy to oblige and to support. Deixa Falar, one of the first samba schools Rio de Janeiro ever had, actually made an enredo in 1932 about how Getúlio Vargas had his coup d'etat and got into power. In 1929, a little earlier, the same samba school, Deixa Falar, actually used horses from the Brazilian military as part of their opening commission. In 1935, it's when the government started giving money to the samba schools in order to incentivize and motivate them into really becoming political elements that the propaganda could use to create the nationalistic movement within the country. In 1939, Getúlio Vargas actually wrote a law, or passed a law, that all samba schools enredos, that means the songs that they compose, must be patriotic songs elevating the beauty and the power and how majestic Brazil is, and leave out any mention of foreigner countries or foreigner elements. And this is very important to establish a parallel that will help you understand many different things. Nazism happened in Germany with fascism happening in Italy. Getúlio Vargas, our president from the time and military dictator, inspired himself in that model to create a nationalistic sort of political government within Brazil, getting elements that could become propaganda and create this national Brazilian symbol, okay? Now, this means that he had to impose rules in order to control how people parade and how the parades are set. So if you just analyze that, let's get the rules that he had to create. That means the uniforms, marching aligned, the songs, the enredos being about Brazil, and the time that the schools had to get from one side of the avenue to the other. You will get to the format that we know today, but most importantly, I would like to bring your attention to the last element, the time. The time means that they only have a certain amount of time to get from point A to point B. So they have to speed up. They have to speed up their beat. They have to speed up their drums to make people march faster. To make people march faster. People march faster. And that's when the baterias started to become more and more accelerated, faster and faster, just to be able to fit the whole school onto that period of time. I think this is extremely interesting. I did not know about this, and when I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is mind-blowing. There was another element that was being used in Germany during the Nazis' time to spread propaganda, nationalistic propaganda, the radio. And the radio was becoming more and more affordable and accessible to all different people in different classes, and it was deeply used to diffuse the idea of Samba being a national symbol. So the parades were already being broadcast back in the 20s, the 30s, by radio people. This decision to broadcast the parade from Rio or to the entire country by radio was made by the DIP, the Department for Press and Propaganda, to reinforce the nationalistic spirit. And of course, when they did that, they chose that samba that was right there, Samba de Estácio, the one originated in the Afro-diasporic music style and the drums. So this way, poor people all over Brazil could enjoy samba and carnival celebrations, and that was a very good political maneuver. Like, we have to, I take my hat, because it's a good idea. And some songs that were played and became national hits at the time were actually ordered by Getúlio Vargas. For example, the song Recenseamento from Carmen Miranda.
Em 1940, lá no morro começaram o recenseamento.
If you don't know who Carmen Miranda is, don't worry, I am sure that I will make a video talking about her, because she's another symbol of Brazil and samba, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy hearing about Carmen Miranda, and that will come soon. So, aside from creating all of this and broadcasting by radio, the DIP, Department for Press and Propaganda, also sort of installed other measures to make sure that nationalistic spirit was going around. First, they started teaching music in the schools, and that was being supervised by Heitor Villa-Lobos, one of the amazing composers, the most well-known composers we have in Brazil. In the 1930s, they also created the National Day of Brazilian Popular Music, and in this way, they also sort of decentralized the power and the money and the industry that was in São Paulo and brought to Rio, creating a whole new market of whole new people, plenty of people who want to celebrate carnival and therefore need to purchase costumes and fabrics. So they were creating a new market, and they had economical reasons for that as well. On January 29th, 1936, Mangueira was celebrating that their songs were broadcast in a radio program in the Nazist Germany. So everything is very connected, the way that samba became a nationalistic symbol. And I would like to point out one last element that is also politically very important and very diplomatically seen, very interesting to observe. In the 30s, Walt Disney visited Brazil, and there was already this feeling of nationalistic patriotism, and Walt Disney recognized that. And he decided to create a cartoon called Hello Friends, Alô Amigos, from the Donald Duck. Donald Duck flies to visit a couple of friends all over the world, and he goes to Brazil and meets a Brazilian cartoon called Zé Carioca. And Zé Carioca shows Donald Duck different aspects from Brazilian culture, including the samba.
Donald, I will show you the land of the samba.
Samba? What samba?
Ah, the samba.
To leave a link in the description box of this video to the entire cartoon so you can watch. It's just a few minutes long, and really it's super cute, but there are lots of elements in that video that you get you thinking, And the idea behind it was actually to, in an indirect way, establish a connection between Brazil and the United States and avoid that other countries, since Donald Duck traveled to many other countries, not only Brazil, but to avoid that other countries supported the Nazist Germany at the time. The history of samba is very polemic. We saw that it was forbidden at first. It got popular with the introduction of white European instruments. Then after the modern week, then after the modern art week of 1922, there was the shift in the way people thought, and they started looking for the origins and focusing in the Afro-diasporic form of samba. And then our political dictator Getúlio Vargas came into power through a coup d'etat in 1930 and made samba into the national symbol that we know today. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you leave a like and a comment if you did. Again, subscribe to the channel and send this video to your friends, to your entire samba school, to your entire dance group, because this is valuable information. If you bring people to the channel and the channel grows, you motivate me to keep shooting videos like this and going myself deeper into research and history. As usual, all the sources that I use to research for this video will be put also in the description box of this video. Thank you very much. Can't wait to come back to you with more amazing elements from our beautiful samba world. Bye!